So hi folks, I watched and was entranced by the Golf Augusta Masters this weekend in which a certain Northern Irish golfer called Rory McIlroy nearly managed to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, but actually managed ultimately in a sudden death playoff to lift the Augusta Masters trophy, which is probably the most celebrated. It's like the Wimbledon of golf, and it's a huge feather in the cap of someone like McIlroy, who was always in danger of being a nearly guy. He's won the 3, but not the 4th. He's not won Wimbledon. If you're a tennis player, you won all the other Grand Slam events. For those of you who don't know your golf, and why should you? Watching golf on television is a bit like watching paint dry, isn't it? But I obviously inhaled paint fumes as a kid when my stepfather was watching the golf, because I find it weirdly fascinating, and I can't put my finger on it. Well, I can put my finger on why I find it fascinating, and this is why we find sporting events fascinating. Because actually everybody there, and I'm talking about in Georgia, in America, were rooting for him, even though he was pitched against an American star and showman. Some of the cheers were actually louder. I would say the cheers were louder for him than they were for an American, which is really interesting. And one wonders why everybody was rooting for him. Was it because he's a nice guy? Was it because he's a really skillful golfer and kind of deserves it? Or was it something a little bit deeper about why it is we are hooked on the story of a sporting success, particularly one that was as dramatic as this one, had as many ups and downs as this one did. Now, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my latest run-ins, because I've actually feel like I've achieved success at long last. Too late, mate? ? Has been answered. Yeah, no, it's not too late, because I had an amazing mini relationship with a genuinely attractive girl, one that I was genuinely attracted to, but one that anybody who saw a photograph, their jaws dropped. Most importantly, a girl who I just felt in tune with, I chimed with in terms of personality and the magical chemistry of our respective characters. And I don't think I'm just being a kind of an old romantic in saying that. I think there was a real connection. But unfortunately, it ended. For reasons I may vlog about in the future. I did vlog about the adventure in the previous 2 vlogs, but just for the record, although I recorded those vlogs during that mini relationship, I didn't actually publish them until after the relationship had ended, in circumstances which are, well, when I finally found out the circumstances, I was like, aha, okay. So to come back to Too Late Mate, it's like I feel after 10 years, I've kind of asked that question without really understanding, having an answer to the question, well, what do you mean by too late? Too late for what? And of course, when I wrote the book and when I started this adventure, too late for me meant, can a 46-year-old girl actually have romantic adventures in the bedroom, etc., with younger, hotter girls, when he's had, 15, 20 years of drought, a real drought. Read the book, ka-ching. And, is it possible for an older vintage dude to have genuine success in this area of his life? I often think about putting up videos of girls. Occasionally I do, but only where they've given me permission. Just because I think guys watching this vlog may think I'm some sort of a YouTube fraud who just talks the talk but has never walked the walk. which is frustrating and infuriating. And if ever you were interested in the sort of the girls that I have been dating, then book a hour with me on the telephone on Skype, and I'll show you the photos. Because guys just sort of, I remember, because I was in this position, you know, I just couldn't believe it when I saw the quality of girls that more experienced guys when I was starting this stuff were dating. Anyway, it has ended, and really the question is not so much too late for, you know, sexual adventures and many relationships and romantic encounters. The question really is too late for a long-term relationship, because she was A1. She was someone with whom I could see myself in a long-term relationship. I could see myself living with her because, you know, we chimed. I could see myself hanging out with her like a good mate, a good friend, who, you know, where you see beyond the physical attractiveness of the girl to someone who you can actually have a long-term relationship with. So it's very hard and very disappointing when that ended, and very painful. How on earth does the Golf Masters Championship and Rory McIlroy, what on earth has that got to do with the life and loves of Alex Forrest? Well, I think it's because it hits on quite a sort of deep psychological issue that's going on here, which is that as men, as women too, I guess, but specifically as men, we don't like being held back by limitations, being held back by wrong thinking. And you know, the reason why people don't make the attempt to achieve something serious with their lives, to make changes in their lives, is because of fear of failure. And by God, I sympathize. Why would you want to, you know, go through the hell, go through the ups and downs, the roller coaster of, you know, playing a Golf Masters, or hitching up with, you know, a genuinely attractive girl for life and trying to find one? And I think it's a very valid question, but I think, as I say, the answer is that we simply don't want to be limited as men, and it troubles us when we are, and we can get in denial, we can sort of suffocate ourselves about it, we can tell ourselves that, I don't know, we don't deserve it, that there's other things going on in life, it's not very important, I don't really want it that much, I'm already got a girlfriend, even though I'm not happy with her. There might be a whole host of reasons. It's you know, chasing after girls is not a thing that a respectable guy does. You know, I don't need it. You know, there is 101 different weasels in your head. This is the weasel 1001 in terms of weasels, telling you why it is that you shouldn't even try. And then when you get, and the thing is, that's because we're afraid. We're afraid that if we do try, we'll fail, and that the failure will be far more painful than if we'd never tried in the first place. Well, I can attest to the fact that failing is proper painful. Failing to get a number of a girl in the street, failing to get a girl out on a date, failing to have a mini relationship once you've had sex with a girl, they're all painful enough in orders of magnitude, but then actually finding someone who is a good match for you and is genuinely attractive and you get on with, and then to have that, and then to lose that then puts you, you know, right back down the snakes and ladders. Is it, you got the ladder, you go down the snake, right down the bottom of the snake, and you thought you spent so much effort ascending the ladder, you know, blood, sweat and tears, and then you get to the top, and then the ladder topples and you end up starting down this massive great snake, and it feels to you that you're back down in the worst position you were had you never put your foot on the first rung in the first place. And the reason that we root for people like Rory McIlroy is because he has, it's been like 13 years since he's won a Grand Slam event. And he's looking like he's never going to close off because his career with the Grand Slam, and we all know, looking at him, it would be disappointing to us as much as to him were he not to fulfill his potential. Yeah, it would be really disappointing were he not to fulfill his potential, and that's what a man finds most difficult to live with. It's not fulfilling his potential. That's what we all want, and we're at different levels, aren't we? Yeah, Rory McIlroy is right up there in terms of sporting achievements, and we root for the guy and feel for the guy, even though he's multi-billionaire and got a corporate jet and a hot wife and all the rest of the trappings. Yet we know he's not happy because we know he's not fulfilled his potential. And we can see him going through this struggle. He's been so close in touching distance, and now he's on the world stage. He's going through the ringer basically, and some of the shots that he played during that final day for a guy that he's talented, I could have done better. Believe it or not, and he was just obviously teetering, and. It was like that. He was like 5 shots ahead, and then down the snake, and they had to climb back up the ladder again, and then like at the penultimate hole, and then when he finally, we went to a playoff. He had to play off with another guy, an Englishman, and when he finally, and then the final shot was just a beauty. And when he won, which he should have really got the whole thing in the bag, on the first, second and third hole, the final day of 4, hours ago, he just fell to the ground and he was crying. And it was just this relief of all that pent up emotion, disappointment that had spanned the last 14 years of his life. And that's a beautiful thing to see anyone at any stage finally fulfill their potential. And what great drama it is too when we see it. At the heart of any good movie is someone who was stuck, and then something happens that then opens a door for them, and then they're suddenly into a new world, a new sort of magical chapter of their lives where they go for something, and then they usually stumble right at the end before the final resolution. And it's all about what's that doing. It's art mirroring life, which is that we are rooting for a protagonist, whether it's on screen or whether it's a real person, to overcome, prevail, and transcend their own inner demons. But on the journey, they've all been rock bottom. And in a good movie, the structure of a good comedy movie, not obviously a tragedy which works in reverse, before the final act, the hero hits rock bottom. He's kind of nearly there, but then something happens and the whole thing falls apart, and then he finds something deep within himself to fulfill his ambitions in the final act, and get both perhaps what he wants on screen, as well as what he needs, which is the deeper issue. But once you've resolved those inner issues, then there is absolutely no reason why you can't go on to fulfill your potential. And I think this applies for any of you listening to this. You know, you will have been in, let's say you might have come to the end of a marriage. Your wife might have left you for a higher status guy. You might have just been knocked back after being out and approaching lots of girls, and you just can't take it any longer. You want to throw in the towel. You might be in my position where you've actually can't quite believe it that you've managed to get a really attractive girl into your life, and it's quite rare, isn't it? Who with whom you've made a real proper connection, and then the wheels come off. How do you deal with that? And I've been struggling with that question. The reason for making this vlog is to sort of try it and find an answer to how to move forward, because right now it's so strange, isn't it? It's not even to do with age. It's like right at the end when I'm kind of quite old, I've actually managed to find someone who 10 years ago I would have, you know, thought was a great match. But right now I do feel old. I feel old in a kind of a way of, insofar as I've kind of tried everything, and it just makes you feel like it's not going to happen for you. And that's such an interesting, golf is such an interesting analogy, because you do tend to find there are a lot of older players who haven't quite fulfilled their potential, and you can go on and win a major golf tournament when you're really quite old. I think McIlroy was well into his 40s. And you see people in their 40s and their 50s competing at the highest level and winning. But the demons start to crowd in. The little goblins start to clamber around and trying to get into your head and tell you that it's too late. While I think I've discovered that it is that it is not too late to date and have romantic relationships with genuinely attractive girls, younger, hotter, and girls with good personalities. It's but I'm now like, well, okay, but actually I've asked the wrong question. It is too late to have a long-term relationship with one of these girls, because, you know, the weasels pop into your head, don't they? Because you've tried and failed multiple times. You just can't get over the wire, because you haven't got the relationship skills that are needed in order to have a long-term relationship. I had the longest relationship I've had was back really when I was quite young. It was only about 18 months or so. I've never kind of lived with anyone and never been married, so that you've got the little goblin that says, well, hang on, you know, the little stigma around being a singleton, and singletons who have not been in a relationship, not been married, aren't going to be able to attract a genuinely attractive girl into their lives long term, even though they might have acquired the skills to be able to chat up girls, to approach girls, to have sex with girls, and to have many relationships with girls, to have great fun with girls. Nevertheless, when it comes to for life, there's something missing, yeah? So those are the little, really quite profound and deep issues that I don't pretend to have an answer to, other than do a little vlog about it, talk to people about it, read, reflect, but also perhaps above all, and this is advice, some of the best advice out there, is to get back on the horse, because what one learns from doing this stuff is that most problems are solved by approaching more, going out, getting out and approaching. I found it very difficult to do that. I have made a few approaches actually, just in a coffee shop, and in the gym, and one or two other places. It was great afterwards, but at the time it was like climbing Mount Everest. But one has got to find a way almost to sort of go back into the battle, but one also has to find a way to reset and to reflect. And I think probably the very best advice that I can give anybody listening to this in terms of how to get back on the horse is, because how you're not allowed to regret things. You mustn't look back, you must look forward. But I think you do need to look back, because you don't necessarily need to regret things, but one surefire way of regretting things and carrying a bad experience through life like a ball and chain is if you don't resolve it, learn from it, eyeball it, move through it. There's got to be this sort of period of reflection, as well as I say, getting back on the horse and taking action. And so really the big question for me is, well, what have I learned? And I like the same little trick that a good friend of mine used in the street approaching girls, I also would use here. The macro is no different from the micro. That is to ask yourself what you did wrong, and own it and get upset and angry about it, what you fucked up, and grouch about it. To ask yourself what you did right, to acknowledge both those things, and then to ask yourself with the benefit of hindsight, what would I have done differently if I had done it all over again? If I could go back in time and go through the experience all over again, what would I have done differently? And then, and only then, move forward. I've got two plans right now in terms of going forward. One is because I've done so much approaching over the years, and I do still, as I say, approach as I go about my day to day. So I'm going to sort of continue to do that, and I'm going to continue to, or rather I'm going to return to what I've left off for the last 3 to 6 months, which is Tinder, because I've actually had a little bit of decent success with Tinder over the last couple of years, and I've got some buddies who've got into it in a big way, but they won't share the knowledge with me. So I'm going to have to, but it seems exciting and interesting what it is that they're doing, and I've got someone who can help me with that, to whom I can, both in terms of production of photos and profiles and the whole package, and also the texting structure and technique. So one of the things that I'm going to be doing in order to keep enthusiastic, keep interested, and to keep going forward is to do a little bit of a fun, light-hearted, but hopefully informative and illuminating mini project into Tinder and how to make it work for you, and not to get stressed about it, and not for it to be a black hole in terms of draining your energy, because that's a big danger of Tinder. So I'm going to come up with a little mini project which I'll publish on the channel, and maybe even write a little book about, as well as continuing to approach. But how I'm going to do those two things, because one does need to refresh oneself in life with any pursuit, and think of new ways of going forward, that I'll leave to a follow-up vlog. So if you are in any phase, and obviously this is perhaps could be relevant to an older guy for whom a relationship with a girl he's genuinely attracted to has come to an end, perhaps an unexpected end like with me, and they are struggling because it's like they feel like perhaps there's not much of life left. Perhaps they just want to kind of withdraw into their cave and lick their wounds and watch reruns of old golf masters with the Chinese takeaway and a whiskey, and never ever emerge again into the light of day, which is a little bit like I feel right now. So let's leave this vlog on a downer. Let's leave this vlog at rock bottom, and I'm not even going to tell you to strap on your balls. Cheers for listening. Bye for now.